So welcome everyone, and let's just start off with a Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. And yes, I hope you had a fruitful sit. And today's talk, we're going to have a look at a short sutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, but one that embraces basically the qualities of the Dhamma and the qualities of the teaching. And I think it's always useful to be reminded of these. And the context of this sutta is that there was a wandering brahmin who presumably would have been going around many different teachers, asking about the quality of their teaching and what it brought. And he would have come across the Buddha. So the sutta starts in this way. Then a certain brahmin, wanderer, approached the Blessed One and said to him, approached the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, they sat down to one side, and he said to the Blessed One, Master Gautama, it is said, a directly visible Dhamma, a directly visible Dhamma. In what way is the Dhamma directly visible, immediate, inviting one to come and see, applicable, to be personally experienced by the wise? Now, these 6 qualities of the Dhamma are, if you like, fundamental to the way the Buddha taught and the way that meditators experience and come to understand the Dhamma. So, immediately visible, or visible. And the meaning here is, from the Pali, is that it's visible in this world, it's visible in this life. In other words, it's something that can be seen for itself, not understood intellectually, not something that's seen at the end of life, at death, but actually in the process of our daily living. So this is very important because it means that the Dhamma is literally a living Dhamma, and one that we can experience and understand by direct observation because we can see it. And then it says immediate. And the meaning here from the Pali can indeed be immediate, but it also means it's not delayed and it's not gradual. Now, this is very interesting in contrast to what the Buddha often says about a personal development is a gradual process. So as we move through our practice, we have this gradual development. But that sense of gradualness doesn't apply to the Dhamma itself. It's immediate. In other words, it can be seen and seen here, right now, immediately, provided that we cultivate the capacity to do so. Inviting one to come and see. Well, this is a very interesting quality. It means that as we begin to see the Dhamma, it has if you like, a quality of that awareness. It invites us to investigate further. And another way of interpreting this, the Pali here, would be to encourage investigation. So it's, if you like, it's enticing to the mind. As we begin to see the Dhamma, it encourages us to look at more. Applicable. Now, applicable is it's relevant. It's relevant. So we recognize by what we see the relevance for our own life and for our own experience. It can also have a quality of being worthy of pursuit. So we're enticed into investigating more, and in that process, we also see just how beneficial this is. To be personally experienced. So this is about us as individuals. It's something that we need to cultivate for ourselves. We need to do the work for ourselves, and we get, if you like, the benefit of that individually. So it's an investigation into the nature of the Dhamma, but it's an individual journey. We might be sidetracked from this by thinking, well, isn't this a selfish enterprise? But what's being suggested here and what's being explained is that we need to make the effort, and that's the important quality here. You know, we can have good friends, kalyana mitta, on the path, but the work cannot be done for us. We must invest in that ourselves. To be experienced by the wise, in other words, to be known and understood. And so we have this quality of the Dharma that is visible. It can be seen directly. It can be seen individually. So it doesn't have to be explained to us or described to us. It can be observed and directly witnessed. It's very relevant and supportive of daily life. And as we begin to see it, it invites us to investigate more. So these qualities are really, really important in terms of the nature of our relationship to the Dharma. But there are things that can obstruct this. So the Brahmin has asked us, in what way is the Dharma like this? And the Buddha replies, Brahmin, one excited by lust. So this is raja, this is attachment to the senses, if you like, to sensory experience. The five senses, the classical ear, eye, nose, tongue, and the body, and of course the sixth sense, the Buddha described of the mind. One excited by lust, overcome by lust, with a mind obsessed by it, intends for his own affliction, for the affliction of others and for the affliction of both. And they experience mental suffering and dejection. So, something very interesting here. When we become attached to sensory experience, then there's a leaning of the mind, you know, and it's the part of the mind that is not the rational conceptual mind. This is not mano, this is chitta. This is the, if you like, the emotional base of the mind, the heart mind. So it's not a rational decision, if you like, but this attachment, this excitement to lust, if this emotional engagement with it intends the mind in that way, and that brings affliction for ourselves, affliction for those that we deal with, and for both. But when lust is abandoned, they do not intend for their own affliction, for the affliction of others, or for the affliction of both. And they do not experience mental suffering and dejection. So here's the immediacy. By the dropping of lust, we immediately experience something different. We do not experience the mental suffering or the dejection. So what's the difference between the two? Well, the difference between the two is described by Bhante Viramsey through his description of right effort, the 6 R's. If we adopt the 6 R's, when we notice that the mind is caught up with raja, with lust, with this attachment, this is when we've taken our experience personally. In the act of taking something personally, we move away from these qualities of the Dhamma, that they're visible, immediate, inviting investigation, applicable, relevant, and to be understood individually. Simply by that attachment that takes us away, we lose that quality that invites us to investigate the Dhamma. And this attachment draws us away. As soon as we recognize that's happened, we're already getting back on track, because that's the establishment of mindfulness. When we redirect our mind, we're changing, we're making the effort we require. We're putting the energy in to do something different. So here's 2 qualities of the factors of enlightenment, if you like. When we relax the tension around our brain, well, we're introducing a degree of tranquility, which is another factor of enlightenment. And we're adopting what is being invited for us to do in the Satipatthana Sutta and the Mindfulness of Body Sutta, which is to tranquilize the bodily formation, because the tension around our brain, this is a somatic experience. It is a tension, a physical tension in our body. But we're also, with the mindfulness of breathing, invited to tranquilize the mental formation. So when we relax this tension around our brain and the tension in our body, we also notice the mind goes from this narrow perspective to a wide perspective. And this is the tranquilizing of the mental formation as well. So by doing that, we've already, introduced a number of the aspects of the factors of enlightenment. We then re-smile, which brings back the sense of joy, another factor. We return back to the feeling of loving kindness in our practice. And by that, we've re-established our collectedness. And the whole process that we've done has required us to be aware and to have investigated the states. That's another factor. And we've returned in that process to a state of equanimity, which is the last factor of enlightenment. So within that 6R process, we've brought the Dharma back into life again. And so these qualities of the Dharma then become available as for us to observe. So in that process, we have moved away from this mental suffering and dejection and come back into a balanced state of mind. One of the things that Bhante Viramsey sometimes said was that he would work with the 6 R's, and as we tranquilize and re-smile, he would say that that's a moment when craving is no longer present. And in the absence of craving, of course, we bring the whole of the Dharma to life. One excited by lust, overcome by lust, with a mind obsessed by it, engages in misconduct of body, speech, and mind. So this simple process of moving away from this visibility of the Dharma by raja, by this attachment, also then brings us back into, if you like, the karma formations. The fact that we're now, our actions of body, speech, and mind, and of course karma means action, are generating, if you like, from a place of, or not from a place of balance. And so these will have their own karma fruit, the ripening process, and then the fruit of the karma. But when lust is abandoned, they do not engage in misconduct by body, speech, or mind. One excited by lust, overcome by lust, with mind obsessed by it, does not understand as it really is their own good, the good of others, or the good of both. But when lust is abandoned, they understand as it really is their own good, the good of others, and the good of both. In this way, Brahmin, that Dharma is directly visible, immediate, inviting one to come and see, applicable, to be personally experienced by the wise. So we see here, the value of right effort, and particularly the way that Bhante Ramsey developed right effort is as the 6 R's. Every time we use the 6 R's, we are giving ourselves the opportunity to see the Dharma in this way. So it's not simply a matter of releasing things that have drawn us away from the feeling of loving kindness. It's the way that it's opened us up to understand the Dharma and to see that it's visible, immediate, to see how it invites us to investigate further, and how it's absolutely relevant to where we are, and how it has to be individually experienced. So this really reinforces the value of working with the 6 R's, the right effort that Bhante Ramsey described, because it's constantly bringing us back into this visibility of the Dharma. And so every time we do it, we have this opportunity to, if you like, reground, recheck in, to understand things just that little bit more. So, but it's not only attachment to the senses that's key here. So one of the things about the attachment to the senses, this lust, is that it has a counterpose or counter to lust, which is generosity. But what we have to understand, that generosity, often described as dana, is more than just the act of giving. The act of giving counteracts the sort of tenacity of the feeling of lust, because it forces us to do something physically different. So it forces us to see this tension that we have between attachment and giving. But this is, if you like, a mechanical referencing. What's also very interesting is there's another aspect of generosity, and this is something called chaga. And chaga, it doesn't quite have the same visibility, but it's present in the suttas. It doesn't have the same visibility as dana, because dana was, if you like, advice often to laity about how they could help bring their life into balance. So these are things they could do. Now, chaga is very interesting, because chaga is, if you like, the felt experience that we have when we are generous. And it's the felt experience which is what we learn from, because we learn that it's a wholesome state compared to the attachment. This is how the chitta, the heart mind, learns. If you like, dana in terms of giving is teaches the intellectual mind, mano, but the felt experience teaches the chitta, which is another aspect of mind. These words are often used interchangeably for mind, but I think there's an interesting distinction in the Okay, sorry, I had to just plug in my computer there. There's an interesting distinction in the suttas, which is that the mano and chitta have different qualities. They're different qualities of mind. And chaga is an experience of the chitta. So each time that we are generous, and we can be generous to ourselves as well as to others. And what's being brought out here about the affliction, there's an affliction to ourselves, our own affliction to others, and affliction to both. Well, chaga is something that we can experience when we're generous to ourselves as well as when we're generous to others. And one of the aspects of Bhante Vimalaramsa's teaching is it's a teaching of generosity. It's a teaching of how are we generous to ourselves. Because with the process of the 6 R's, we bring ourselves back to a more generous state of mind, to a more generous state of chitta. The heart opens out. And I think this is a very helpful way to see. And this is where his very strong teaching about using the hindrances as our teachers is really important. The hindrances have a tendency to close our heart down. And what we actually want to do is to do the reverse. And personally, this is what I would interpret as courage in the practice. The word courage comes from the French cœur, the heart. And for me, courage, as opposed to bravery, and this is a distinction I personally make, it's not a distinction you necessarily will find in the dictionaries, but my personal distinction between courage and bravery is courage is an opening of the heart in the face of adversity. Bravery for me is a pushing through in a circumstance in the face of adversity, if you like. So one is for me is a mano, and one of them is a chitta quality. And I think the 6 R's are a constant invitation to reopen the heart in the face of whatever is going on. And for me, this opening the heart in this way is an act of personal generosity, and the feeling it has is when we experience this reopening of the heart, it has an aspect of the quality of chaga, this felt experience of being generous to ourselves. So generosity is one of the counterposes, if you like, or counteractions to this attachment, this raja. And then we move on to another of the unwholesome states. We have greed, we have hatred, and we have delusion. So the Buddha goes on, one full of hate, overcome by hate, with a mind obsessed by it, intends for their own affliction, for the affliction of others, and for the affliction of both. And they experience mental suffering and dejection. So it's exactly the same here. So what's the counterpose to this hatred? Well, this is loving kindness. And this is one of the things which I think I'm really appreciative about Bhante's teaching, is that he developed, if you like, or encouraged using loving kindness as the anchor. And why is this so really helpful? Well, the Buddha described the Brahma Viharas, that's loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, as the only 4 blameless states. Blameless in the sense that they did no harm to ourselves, they did no harm to others, and they did no harm to both. So we can kind of see how this is fitting in now. So to come back to a wholesome state as part of our meditation is really, really positive. Bhante also said you could use the breath as part of swim. But when we're coming back to the breath, we're coming back to a neutral state, not a wholesome state. So, and he would say that the breath, working with the breath would take many times longer to develop the same understanding. But he came from a breath-based practice originally, and certainly he wasn't opposed to using the breath. But using loving kindness, we can see we're coming back to a wholesome state, but we're also coming back to a wholesome state which is counterbalancing hatred. And this is really, really helpful. So, but when hatred is abandoned, so each time we come back to the loving kindness, we're abandoning hatred. as well as whatever attachment that had distracted us. So, but when hatred is abandoned, they do not incline for their own affliction, for the affliction of others, or for the affliction of both. And they do not experience mental suffering and dejection. One excited by hatred, overcome by hatred, with a mind obsessed by it, engages in misconduct of body, speech, and mind. But when hatred is abandoned, they do not engage in misconduct by body, speech, and mind. One excited by hatred, overcome by hatred, with a mind obsessed by it, does not understand as it really is their own good, the good of others, or the good of both. But when hatred is abandoned, they understand as it really is their own good, the good of others, and the good of both. It is in this way, Brahmin, that the Dhamma is directly visible, immediate, inviting one to come and see, applicable or relevant, to be personally experienced by the wise. So, each time we 6R, that's what we're doing. We're bringing back the visibility of the Dhamma. We're recognizing how immediately effective it is, and the 6Rs are immediately effective. It invites us to come and see. So as we get more and more used to using the 6Rs and smiling in daily practice and becoming more sensitive to the impact that tension in our mind and body is indicating, it's a signpost for what's going on. We see how relevant and applicable this practice is in our daily life experience, which is the visibility of the Dhamma. And we realize that this is something that we are individually coming to understand and recognize. We can talk to others about it, but until they individually see it, then it's just words. It's kind of like the taste of milk. You can describe the taste of milk to people and you've no idea whether they have any concept of milk, and they don't really understand what the concept of milk is. But then you can give them a glass of milk to taste, and that they've got that knowledge and understanding, and that's what this is really describing. So then we've got this delusion. The third of the akusala, the third of the unwholesome states. One who is deluded, overcome by delusion, with a mind obsessed by delusion. Okay, delusion. What is delusion here? Well, delusion can embrace many, many different things. But I find for myself personally that the most helpful way in my practice is to recognize that delusion is associated with taking things personally. As soon as I have a personal perspective on something, my mind is already moving away from a state of balance. So, when a mind is obsessed by delusion, it intends for their own affliction, for the affliction of others, and for the affliction of both. And when they experience that, they experience mental suffering and dejection. But when delusion is abandoned, they do not intend for their own affliction, for the affliction of others, and for the affliction of both. And they do not experience mental suffering and dejection. One who is deluded. And delusion here is moha. And the antidote to delusion is wisdom. And where do we develop wisdom? Well, we develop by seeing the Dhamma. So we need these qualities of the Dhamma, this visibility of the Dhamma, to see and understand that it's immediately there and relevant, and it invites us to develop more wisdom by inviting us to come and see. And that wisdom is a personal wisdom, so it's individually understood and experienced. So When delusion is abandoned, they do not intend for their own affliction, for the affliction of others, or for the affliction of both. And they do not experience mental suffering and dejection. One who is deluded, overcome by delusion, with a mind obsessed by it. And remember, this is the heart mind, the chitta. So it's not just an intellectual obsession. This is a sort of heart and soul obsession. When delusion is abandoned, they do not intend for their own affliction, for the affliction of others, or for the affliction of both, and they do not experience mental suffering and dejection. One who is deluded, overcome by delusion, with a mind obsessed by it, engages in misconduct in body, speech, and mind. But when delusion is abandoned, they do not engage in misconduct by body, speech, and mind. So here's a really nice little trigger, if you like. When we find ourselves behaving in a way which is perhaps less than we would hope for, rather than simply get disappointed in ourselves or upset or irritated or whatever, we can simply use that as and investigate and go, okay, where was the delusion there? What happened? Where did I take something personally? Where did I lose sight of the Dhamma? So we need to be kind to ourselves in these processes. Otherwise, we just hide away. We kind of sweep that behavior under the carpet and pretend that everything's going to be fine from now on. No, we need to use these experiences to inform us, to help us train, to help us understand. And this is really important. So we need the honesty, if you like, the honesty to see, where things have gone wrong. And this is developing humility. And humility is really important because humility enables us to recognize where we are. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to beat ourselves up about where we are, because the very fact that we're prepared to practice is really, really encouraging. So part of humility is to understand how far we've come, as well as how much more we need to do. So we need to develop a confident humility, seeing that, okay, this has gone off the rails, but I have these tools that I can do something about, and I understand how to use them to some degree or other. So we need the confidence, but the confidence here is not an arrogance, but the confidence is what enables us to build on where we are, rather than just sort of whip ourselves and beat ourselves up and feel that we have to start at the bottom again. So what's important to recognize here is that progress is not a linear graph. It's not like in the new year we sign up to the gym that we're and we promise ourselves that we're going to exercise and we go like this, or we start a new diet after Christmas, and then we keep it going for 2 or 3 weeks because we've got the motivation, and then we break the habit, and then it's like, oh, what was the point? If we think of it like that, then every time we notice deluded behavior, angry behavior, hatred, or attachment, we're going to feel like it's a diet that's just fallen off the wagon again, and what was the effort? But if we consider our progress to be more like a spiral, and I really like the concept of a spiral, so it's like a screw thread. So in order to go in that direction, we have to go round and 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 keep going. And you don't get one of those without one of those, whatever that represents. So this might be an expansion of our practice, where we feel the confidence of progress and understanding and behavior change. And then we have this period of consolidation where we realize we're not quite as far along the line as we thought we were, but this is consolidating the practice. We understand the consequences of behaviors and times when we've not been quite as where we might have been. And we do that in order to get the next going up. So we need to have compassion with ourselves in order to allow ourselves to keep going round here. Yeah. If we're going to be simply judgmental and critical ourselves, then we're always going to be wanting to be on this bit. Yeah? And so any of this bit is we don't get the learning from it. We kind of hide away from this. Whereas if we can recognize that all of this is important, then we begin to see the visible Dharma. Because the visible Dharma isn't just about, this ascendancy. It has to be about this grounding as well, and recognizing the quality of Raja and Moha, and the qualities of greed and hatred and delusion. So we have this Raja, Dosa, Moha of, this is recognizing the qualities of this is maybe represented in this part of the spiral, but it's all learning. The only unforgivable thing is if we don't learn, not that we fall off every now and then and have to climb back on. So, but when delusion is abandoned, they do not engage in misconduct by body, speech, and mind. One who is deluded, overcome by delusion, with a mind obsessed by delusion, obsessed by it, does not understand as it really is. This is for their own good, the good of others, or for the good of both. So when we get caught up, we temporarily lose that understanding. And then once we 6R and we come back onto this other part of the cycle, then we begin to see it again. And that's how we learn. But when delusion is abandoned, he understands as it really is his own good or their own good, the good of others, and the good of both. It is in this way too that the Dharma is directly visible, immediate, inviting one to come and see, applicable, to be personally experienced by the wise. So this process of getting caught up and abandoning, for me, there's a description of the 6 R's. So all through our daily life, we have this opportunity to recognize that the Dharma has become invisible and then can become visible again. And that process of bringing the qualities of the Dharma back into our life through the 6 R's is a constant and repetitive and necessary process to go from retraining the mind or going from purifying the mind, which is the first of the 3 steps of the 6 R's. When we recognize that our mind's being distracted, we release away from it and we relax the tension, so we release the craving. So that's the purification of the mind, but it's not enough. We need the other 3 parts of the 6 R's, the re-smiling, the returning, and the willingness to repeat this in order to retrain our mind. And in that process, then we have a greater opportunity to keep the qualities of the Dharma present in our experience. And the qualities are that it is visible, it's immediate, inviting one to come and see, applicable, to be personally experienced by the wise. Excellent, Master Gautama. Excellent, Master Gautama. Master Gautama has made the Dharma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been overthrown, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the darkness, so those with good eyesight can see forms. I now go for refuge to Master Gautama, to the Dharma, and to the Sangha of the Bhikkhus. Let Master Gautama consider me a lay follower who from today has gone for refuge for life. Okay, so that's the end of this short sutta. Maybe we just allow ourselves just to absorb a little bit of that. So perhaps just sit quietly for a moment. However you're sitting, softly rotate your inner thighs. So that's to rotate them inwards just a little, and you'll notice it invites you to relax your hips and open up your lower back, particularly the sacrum. Now bring your attention just below the navel, deep in the body, and there's an energetic center here which enables us then to feel supported without having to hold tension in the body. Let that center expand a little forward if you need to bring your body into balance. And you'll notice that balance when you feel the spine beginning to let go. Now you may find the spine is kind of tight from the solar plexus upwards, halfway up. So drop the inner edge of your shoulder blades. And that's like a rotation of the shoulder blades where you feel your heart space opening up in all directions. So now you feel a little bit more mobility at the spine, perhaps coming up to the base of the neck, but it's still possibly not quite so free. Now smile and notice the freedom in your neck. Relax the crown of your head, and that freedom kind of goes all the way through the head. Relax any holding and bracing around your brain, and soften your eyes and softly smile. Relax your jaw. And just bring up your meditation object, whatever you've chosen. Be aware of the sense of contact with the ground, wherever that is, your feet, your legs, buttocks. Connect to your breath. Take a deliberate breath in and out. And softly and gently open your eyes. Okay, so any reflections or questions or comments?
Yes, Hugh, I had a question. I was thinking, how do we how do I put this? Of course, we like to do all sorts of things, like go to a concert or whatever. How do we bring that, perhaps that first part? Let's say, how do we keep our minds in balance while still enjoying the things we like day to day?
Well, the Buddha said that the khandhas are our body, our feelings, our perception, the volitional formations in the mind, all mental activity and the consciousness. These can be for our welfare and happiness when we release from clinging. And so he wasn't negating the value of these things. And also he said with Vedana, with feeling, that can be pleasant, it can be unpleasant, it can be neither pleasant or unpleasant. He didn't say the pleasant was wrong or bad or anything like that. It was how we relate to Vedana that are the issues, you know, whether craving comes into this. And craving, sometimes Bhante Ramansi would call craving the I like it, I don't like it mind, or the I want it, I don't want it mind. But another way of looking at it is about imposing preferences. And if we have a preference about our experience, then that's when we begin to suffer. So if you want to go to a concert, yes, you can choose to go to a concert. But then, you know, how do you relate to it in that, you know, are you dissatisfied with the seat you've got, or the view you have, or the quality of the sound, or the people who are around you who are standing up and taking photographs and you can't see anything, or, you know, what is your interaction around that? He certainly, for, you know, lay people, he didn't want people just to just be at home and you know, just doing the bare necessities. He recognized that a lay life is a very full life, but this is why the teaching in generosity, I think, is so important for lay life. Is how can we be generous in all aspects of our lives? And so, can you be generous about the fact someone's standing up in front of you because of their enjoyment of the concert and what they're getting from it? Or is your abiding experience of the concert resentment about the people around you because, you know, it's about our relationship to how things are and the way things are. And are we being disproportionate, you know? Are we spending all our times in festivals and concerts and neglecting other aspects of life which are necessary? Or is there a sense of balance around these things? So the invitation, I think, is in the experience of the concert, are you losing sight of the Dharma?
Right, thanks. Thanks for the talk, by the way. I had one more question that,
of course,
in the end, you guided us through the body a bit.
Mm-hmm.
With the shoulder blades, it's like opening up more like backwards, or it's tilting.
No, the shoulder blades. If my head in this presentation here is the spine, and here's one shoulder blade and here's the other, so I'm looking. It's as if I'm standing behind you. You know, here's the shoulders, here's the spine, and my eyes are pointing into the screen. Then the dropping of the shoulder blades is this dropping of the inner edge of the shoulder blades beside the spine. So what it causes is a slight rotation. It's not a pulling down of the shoulders. And in that slight rotation, what you'll feel is that space just comes all the way around the heart.
Right. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay. So with the loving kindness meditation, that's the space that, you know, that's the spaciousness we want in the body as well as in the mind. And if our spine is free, then we'll feel that spaciousness going all the way around the body. If your spine is tight, and you can just do this right now by just pushing the back of your spine back a little, you'll notice your heart is closed down and all your joints have tightened up in your body. And this is a very common sitting meditation posture. But what you've done is introduce tension into the body. Now, if you expand your center forward just a little, you'll find that everything frees up. And if you allow your body to remain free and spacious in this way, then when your mind moves in your meditation, your body will move as well. And sometimes you'll see the movement of your body before you'll see the movement of your mind. So your body reflects what your mind is doing.
Right.
So it's just another helpful somatic, somatic just it means of the body, a somatic experience which helps us keep our practice in line. And then the yoga that I teach, the Sakita yoga, is about extending that awareness into all movement and presentations of the body. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Kuntal, very good to see you.
Hi, you. I was listening to Bhante's YouTube talk entitled Smile, and I forget the full title, it's part 1 and part 2. In that he says that when you have pain in any part of your body, it could be for a particular reason, like breaking your toe, for example. And he says, just bring up loving kindness and send it to that place.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I also felt later in the talk, as he also referred to doing that with possibly the hindrances, and that's what had me a little confused. Because when we are meditating, we are just we're letting the hindrances be where they are, and we are being with our object of meditation, be it loving kindness or equanimity or whatever it may be, which seems to be slightly different from directing the loving kindness or whatever into the place of discomfort. So could you please shed some light on this?
Okay, I'm not familiar with the talk myself, so I'll just have to speak from my own experience rather than what Bhante said himself. But for me, when we're dealing with pain, for instance, we have two aspects, and there's the classic sort of called the two darts, which describe these two aspects. The first is the actual sensation of the pain itself, and that's common for everyone. Anyone who has a physical body, human body, there will be sensations of pain and discomfort at some stage. And then there's the mind's reaction to that, which is, we might describe as distress or dukkha, if you like. And the distress is optional. That's what the Buddha said. And someone who is someone who meditates has the option to work with the distress, even though the sensation is there. And the way we can do this is often when there's discomfort in the body, then what we have is a tendency to tense around that discomfort. And so what we have the option to do is to release that tension. By releasing the tension, what we're doing is we're working with our aversion, with our hatred of that feeling, or indeed our attachment. I've certainly had occasionally students who are attached to physical discomfort because they have an association with it. And when we soften around the edges, this is the physical manifestation of sending loving kindness. Okay, so when we soften around the edges of pain or discomfort, the tension that we've created, this is the loving kindness. And when we're prepared to stay with the sensation itself, allow it simply to be there, this is self-compassion. And this ties in with what Bhante Vimramsa used to describe as compassion, as seeing someone in distress, giving them the loving space to feel their distress and love them anyway. Now, this was Bhante's description of compassion. And self-compassion is to see that you're in distress yourself. Okay, so this might be the sensation of pain, or the tension around the sensation of pain. To give yourself the loving space, which is the softening around the edges of that pain. To feel your pain, so you're aware of the sensation, and love yourself anyway, which is the relaxation. So you're not trying to get rid of the sensation of pain, you're simply removing the tension you create, which is your aversion to it. So that's one aspect. Now, with the hindrances, Bhante would describe as being our teachers. And that's because it shows us where our attachment and aversions are. And our attachment and aversions are that sense of tension, or it manifests it somatically in our mind, around our physical brain, in our body as tension. And in our mind, it manifests as a closing of the mind compared to a widening of the mind, this awareness of peripheral awareness. And so the hindrances are our teachers, because it's really important that we understand, as we saw here in the sutta, where our raja, where our dosa, and where our moha is, where our greed, our hatred, and our delusion are. So hindrances are very important, but we need to be able to relate to them. How do we relate to them? Well, we relate to them with generosity, kindness, and wisdom. These are the counterposes to our greed, our hatred, and our delusion. Okay, so what's the generosity? Well, the generosity is one aspect of generosity. When we're dealing about our exchanges with other people, we can be generous by allowing people to express their beliefs, their views, their points of view, allow them to have their habitual reactions to things, rather than trying to close them down. And we also want the same generosity towards ourselves. We need to see, rather than close down, our reactions to the hindrances. This is an act of generosity towards ourselves. We then need to work with them with loving kindness, because that counteracts the hatred. The generosity counteracts the attachment. The loving kindness counteracts the hatred. So then we need to work with our hindrances with a sense of loving kindness. And that's the releasing of tension. So here we are back to the 6 R's again. We recognize what's happened without judgment. Okay, so here's the generosity. We release away from it. We relax the tension around our physical brain and in our body. So here's the expressing of the loving kindness approach, softening around the edges, working with our aversions and our attachments, which is what the hindrances are showing us. And then we re-smile and return to the loving kindness. So the hindrances and the 6 R's are intimately connected. And the whole process of the 6 R's is an act of generosity and loving kindness towards ourselves. Please come back. Anyone else, please come back with that, because what Kuntal's raised here is a very important point, and I'd certainly be interested in other people's perspective on that.
May I just ask a quick follow-up, just to reconfirm, so while meditating, if one is with one's object of meditation, there may be pain in the background, but if one is comfortably with one's object of meditation, then one can just be as it is.
If you're still with your object of meditation, in other words, you've not been distracted away from it, then there's absolutely no need to 6 R's. The other stuff is just occurring in the background.
Right.
Just don't pay attention. Yeah.
In the second instance, if you do get pulled away, but you relax into it, and that is enough to come back to the object of meditation with a relatively clearer mind, then one doesn't necessarily need to soften. Would that be correct?
Well, the relaxing is the softening process.
Yes, but to physically go there and soften. The two seem two different things.
If your mind has just got distracted, then you can just release, relax, smile, and come back. If you find you're constantly being pulled away, then what you're giving is whatever's pulling you away, you're giving it energy. And so we need to release that energy. And the releasing of the energy would be to soften around the sensation of the pain.
Thank you. That's clear. Thank you.
Yeah. Is everyone else reasonably happy with what I've described there? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or observations around the sutta, or around any of the questions that have come through, or indeed in more general practice? Yes, May.
Thank you so much for today's talk. I really like the concept of the spiral, the ups and downs, and thank you for reminding us that observations of the downside of the practice is actually equally important, because that teaches us a lot about where we need to work on. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, it's an essential part. It's where all the learning is, I think. Bhante Brahmans used to say, when you've had a really comfortable sit and it's been really joyful and the rest of it, he would say, oh well, you've had a bit of candy. But when you've had so much going on and you've had to work with it in 6 hours and that's it, he would say, now you've been working with the meditation. And we tend to instinctively think the opposite way around. We want to have a meditation just like the last one we had if it was good, whatever good represented, and then we get resentful when it's not like that, and this, that, and the other. And often we feel like we can't meditate until we feel right. If we're having a difficult time, it's like, I need to postpone my meditation until I feel a bit better. No, when it's not going well, that's the time you want to sit down, because that's when the Dhamma comes up very clear. And you might be resentful, you might be, lots of sensations in the body, or there may be, so much going on in the mind, the turbulence of the mind. Well, that's what we have to have a relationship with. So it's so helpful to go in when you feel, sit down when you feel least like doing it. And that might just be from tiredness, I'm too tired to do this. But what's often when you sit down, what you find is there's a different type of energy comes through. The energy of being preoccupied with the mind is exhausted, but not the energy of being present with how the mind is. That's a different energy. And it's very similar. If in the yoga we talk about the physical effort, and then we talk about energetic support, which I was just briefly talking to you about with this energetic support for the meditation. The energetic body is a completely different body to the physical one, and it has almost it doesn't get depleted. It only gets depleted when there's real tiredness rather than mental tiredness. So, if we really do need to sleep, that's fine. But if there's mental tiredness, we can come back into this energetic body, and we don't need it to hold us up. We don't need it to support us. And it's exactly the same in the meditation. We can feel exhausted from our day of engagement and taking things personally and all the rest of it. And if we come back into our practice and start not to do that, we'll find a different expression of energy. Okay. Anything else? No. Okay, and let's finish with the sharing of merit. Now, I don't know if I've got that to share on the screen. Do you have one to share on the screen, May? Yeah.
Yes, just give me 1 sec.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, so let's share some. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share this merit that we have thus acquired for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas and nagas of mighty power, share this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. I look forward to the time we get to do this
Thank you,
again.
Hugh. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye now.
Thank you, everyone.